And I'm curious, this kind of ties in really well with what I want to talk about next because um, you've had the opportunity to see the classical music world from many different lenses
Hmm.
as a performer, as a teacher
Hmm.
now, and even as a social media almost content creator. I don't want to put you in
Yeah, I'd say
that,
that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
no.
but you have quite a following on social media, and so you've been able to see firsthand, just even through your short accelerated
Yeah,
career as a violinist, you've seen the evolution
yeah,
of
yeah.
classical music, and I'm curious how you think classical music is able to serve our modern society today and what things we can do moving forward to continue to grow our art form
Hmm.
to the masses.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so I see it from different lenses.
Mm.
So let's start with the performing aspect. I think any type of communal gathering is a very exciting thing for most people.
Yeah,
I can't generalize, of course, but I think the majority of people, if they're invited to a concert
yeah,
and it's someone that's invite, I mean, if it's a reason to go, I think beyond the concert experience,
yeah,
it's so human to
right,
be together.
right.
Um, that part I find is so important, and I think that's why classical music became so questionable during COVID, because we
Mm,
couldn't get together.
yeah,
Half of, I think, the reason why we watch concerts is the idea of getting together, having a friend, seeing and inviting someone that you haven't seen in maybe a couple months,
mm,
and be like, hey, there's a concert of this Vivaldi Four
yeah,
Seasons,
yeah,
and you and I both love it.
right.
Let's discover this new
Yeah,
artist
yeah,
as well, and
yeah,
then have a good time, go get dinner or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So that natural social like environment
Mm,
is, I think, something we need to continue to share.
mm,
Uh, I use this as an example because those things you need to remind yourself exist.
yeah,
I don't know about you,
yeah,
but for me, immediately after COVID,
yeah,
I actually forgot you could go to a theater and watch a movie.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
still forget
I
sometimes.
still forget too.
Yeah.
So the first time I came up to that
Yeah.
was I was in Europe and I was so bored. I was so bored because I was like, I just landed here. I don't have rehearsal till tomorrow, but I
Right.
kind of also don't want to practice because I'm kind of, I had no more space for it.
Right.
I was like, what is there to do? Like, I'm like, what do people do? I don't want to go watch Netflix again.
Yeah.
I watched everything in the catalog already. And then I don't want to go eat in a restaurant by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just what else is, I can't play sports. It's like 9 o'clock at night already. Then I just saw like, oh, I walked to the cinema that's open at 10 p.m. They
Yeah.
have a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there by myself and there was like four people,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then I remember the next day I asked one of my colleagues who plays in the orchestra.
Yeah.
I said, "There's another movie. Do you guys want to go?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we can watch the movie. We forgot about that, right?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah, I had
Yeah.
some plans, but after dinner we can go
Yeah.
watch the
Yeah.
movie."
Yeah.
So that idea, we have to remember that concerts are also a social event. No
Yes.
matter if you're in North America, Europe,
Mm.
Asia,
Mm.
South America, Africa, it's a very communal event.
Yes.
Second of all, with teaching, I think my lens of that is really to give the experience to the students that learning music is a very fundamental part of their training in their development as
Mm.
people.
Mm.
So I'm still working on understanding how to best share that. Of course,
Mm.
I'm sharing all of my techniques, but sometimes it's not only about that. It's
Mm.
much more about your experience with the
Yeah.
instrument, your
Yeah.
relationship with that, the
Mm.
idea of teamwork.
Yeah.
And I think that's why musicians are also so good at doing other things,
Yeah.
especially if they decide to go into another field, because the idea of giving and taking and adjusting to each other,
Yes.
the idea of abstract concepts and working consistently on an abstract idea
Mm-hmm.
and understanding how that overfolds
Yeah.
in a couple of months later
Yeah.
is so unique. From social media perspective, I mean it's changing just
Yeah.
like every other genre of
Life, really.
life. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
becoming a very large role
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think that before this entire explosion of like Instagram Reels and
Mm.
TikTok, I think social media was a little clearer to navigate.
Mm.
It was very much about like we're going to use this now as our new platform
Yes.
to share the work that we're doing and hopefully get you to be interested in it as well.
Yeah.
I think with the idea of influencers and the
Mm.
idea of just people doing trends,
Mm.
um, it is really hard to navigate. I'm not quite sure where it's going,
Yeah.
quite honestly,
Yeah.
but I think you can say that about almost every field,
Sure.
right? Um, People are trusting uh, influencers more than professionals, and I do see that as being a little bit of a worrisome situation.
Mm.
I do have trust still that hopefully parents can share with their kids that you gotta, there's two levels,
Yeah.
but it does scare me.
Yeah.
But I think what I've more recently in the last year or so, what I've done is a lot of cultural events
Mm.
on top of that. So actually, a couple weeks ago, I did a Canada Korea um, gala event,
Okay.
and this was celebrating the 60th anniversary of Canada and the Republic of Korea having a peaceful relationship.
Oh,
And this
okay.
was done in Ottawa.
Sure.
And I played a piece that was specifically arranged. I think it was called Ohenya.
Okay.
It's a traditional dance, but we
Sure.
made it into a Western style
Oh,
concerto,
yeah.
and it was played with traditional Korean instruments. But I was playing the violin,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it was a mixture of these two things. And the funny thing was, when that concert was advertised, it was sold within like half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I
Amazing.
think people are thirsty for culture.
Yes.
People are thirsty for understanding each other because with social media, it has allowed us to communicate even faster,
Yeah.
but at the same time become more distant because we can't. I think I've known many people, they don't trust what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So when something is in front of them,
Mm.
it's much more powerful. I was also in Abu Dhabi,
Okay.
where we did a collaboration. I worked with a lot of Arab violinists, and that was very interesting just to share ideas
Yeah.
as well in the flesh,
Right.
not just online.
Right.
So for me, that's definitely something that I see that the violin can do, at least with my experience.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
When I love what you brought up earlier about the music being a community experience,
Yeah.
because I think there is a sector of classical musician or classical music lovers that are very traditional
Mm-hmm.
about things, and they almost kind of look down on behaviors that may
Uh,
not align with the traditions of going to a classical music concert. And um, I think at the end of the day, we're all hopefully going to concerts for the same reason. It's for the enjoyment and for the love and the respect of the music.
yeah, yeah.
And I think when all of us have that single, or when we share that single love for it in a very universal sense, then
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes going to concerts even more healthy and maybe more welcoming to the larger
Yeah.
mass, maybe.
That's
But
why I mean my biggest thing, my biggest pet peeve is you got to really be smart with your programming
yes,
because there are certain crowds that cannot handle certain repertoire, and there are certain repertoire that you do not want to play for a very specific crowd.
yes,
So if you are asked to play an outdoor concert for families and kids, I mean, you got to be careful what you program.
yeah,
Program stuff that's fun to play.
yeah.
Program stuff that is meant to be more of an entertainment,
Mm,
and you're gonna have a better time.
yeah,
They're gonna react much more enthusiastically.
right.
If you're in an academic situation
Yeah,
discovering about Schoenberg's last
yeah,
couple of works, play that,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And be very specific
yeah.
and intentional with repertoire because what I realized, and I hope other people realize, is that you don't have to only appeal as one type of artist. You have
Mm,
different shapes of how you present yourself as well.
mm,
Is it over 1 month? Is it constantly shape
yeah,
shifting? I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
But you even look at some pop artists. They show their more serious side,
yeah.
which is very authentic to them as well. They
Sure.
show their more commercial side,
Right.
which is also very authentic to
Right,
them.
right.
But what I don't like is kind of this pigeonhole that because you're this type of artist, that's
Mm.
the only type of music that you can play,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you have to be. Everybody needs to love it, right?
Mm.
Because yeah, you're gonna that's slim pickings at this
Yeah,
point for you.
yeah,
You're gonna appeal to one type of audience. That's
yeah.
it.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. It's all
yeah.
really fascinating.